What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And it is time to start the 2036 Mobile Bay Bears season. It is opening day. Before we get into the season, I just want to apologize for a little bit of delay in the last video until now. I think it was like 2 or 3 days. Busy week at work, absolutely slammed. So been tough to get on here and make some content and play this game really. So I apologize for the slight delay, but the show goes on and we will continue to make videos. If it can't be every day, it'll be every couple of days. I assure you they will keep coming. So stay with us, and hopefully the 2036 season ends in a playoff berth that turns into a deep playoff run. If the 2036 season looks anything like spring training, it might be another back and forth season. I think we've made some pretty good additions with our minor league system, and then we've made a couple of trades to boost our bullpen. So I do think we have improved in the areas that we most needed to. We may not have improved as much as I wanted to, but nonetheless, I think those areas have improved. Offensively, we have more power, and pitching-wise, we have pitchers with better control, so hopefully that means we have less walks. And they also have better home run allowed ratings. So hopefully hopefully we're just better in those areas. Last year, that was our three worst areas. Power rankings, like as far as like home runs and things like that. And we walked a ton of batters and we gave up a lot of home runs, but we didn't hit a lot of home runs. So those are like the three areas that we identified were our weakest. And so we kind of focused on those in the off season. Would have really liked to gotten a pitcher that we missed out on for I don't know how we missed out on him. We offered him more than the Chicago Cubs did, but he wound up going to the Cubs. So something went wrong there. I don't know. I thought we had him locked up and he would have been a huge boost to our rotation. But nonetheless, we do have three really good starters. I think a fourth future, like young prodigy type starter, and then the fifth starter is just kind of like a toss up of what you're going to kind of get every fifth day. As far as results, he'll be there, he'll pitch, but you just don't know what the results are going to be. He's got a mixed bag. But we bolstered our bullpen. We have a few injuries. We'll talk about that. But all in all, I think we addressed the areas we needed to the most this past off season. I just wish we could have addressed them a little bit more. And maybe I should have searched harder. I searched pretty far and wide, and I just couldn't find the right trades or didn't get the right contracts with the free agents and stuff like that. So it is what it is. It's a really good ball club. Most of the ball team is still in place from last season, so I expect at least similar results. And hopefully the additions that we have made will give us the extra 4, 5, 6 wins that we need, and get us over that hump and get us back in the playoffs. We missed the playoffs by a game last year, so pretty unfortunate. 89 wins, I believe we were last year, and we missed the playoffs. So hopefully that is not the case this year, and we can get over that hump. So before we get into the 2036 Mobile Bay Bears, we'll go through the roster and stuff like that in a minute. But I do want to address a couple of the injuries that we had out of spring training and over the off season. To be quite frank, the first one we'll address is the over the off season injury Outfielder Kevin Herman, we picked him up a year ago in a trade with the Dodgers, and didn't really play well for us last year, but was a limited role. He only played in 78 games. Again, nothing that stands out stat wise, didn't produce a whole lot, but he does play a really good defensive left field. Has great intangibles with the personality, great speed, and his ratings are respectable as far as a bat. So, kind of expected a little bit more out of him, but again, we didn't play him full time. But anyways, he had a concussion. I believe he had a car wreck and experienced a concussion, so he's out. At the time, it was like 9 months or 8 months, and he still has 6 to 7 months to go recovering from post-concussion syndrome. So for all intents and purposes, he's out for the season. Unfortunate, but the show does go on, and luckily that happened in an area where we were the deepest, and we were able to supplement him and, quite frankly, put in a better player. And I'll get to that in a minute. The other injury that we had was Jonathan Myers, a player that we picked up in a trade from Baltimore last year, right around the same time as we picked up the Kevin Herman, the last player we just talked about. But he tore his meniscus in his knee, and he's out for 3 to 4 months. He tore that in spring training. Pitched well for us last year in somewhat of a sample size, I would say a decent size. He pitched 41 innings and had a 2.38 ERA, so we were really looking forward to him in the bullpen. He even had a spot start for us last year. Just a solid arm out of the bullpen as far as like what he gave us last year. And he's also, had a couple other decent major league outings in his previous years with other teams. So we were thinking maybe he could produce similar results, but the torn meniscus hurt, and he will be out for pretty much half the season. We'll get him back probably after the All-Star break. So that was one blow to the bullpen. The other blow to the bullpen was our closer, Mr. Middleton. Struggled last year ERA-wise, but still had 39 saves in 60 innings and 62 appearances. He did go 3-12, so he had quite a lot of blown saves. So definitely not ideal. Definitely his worst season ERA-wise since we have had him. He went from a 2.48 the year before to a 4.65. So not ideal, but he did strain his hamstring, and now he is out for 8 weeks. Did that, I believe it was like the last day of spring training. He got hurt on the 25th. Well, not quite. Second to last week of spring training. The issue with this is he is signed long term. He was he was the only closer that we locked up long term at a really good price, $3.5 million. I believe next year we pay him $4.5 million, and that's the highest he gets paid until 2041. But unfortunately, he's been hurt quite a bit since we've signed him, and now his injury proneness since this last injury has gone to wrecked. So definitely potentially looking at moving him. Don't know what value he's going to have. I'll look at that, but I just don't like to have wrecked players on my team, especially as like a closer, because you just can't rely on them. So we'll see what's available for him, if anything at all. I'll be checking that offline, and if anything comes up, I will let you guys know. But that was the other injury. 3 key injuries, I would say. More so just to Herman is a big injury, but not as big as Myers and Middleton. They played key roles in our bullpen. So unfortunate, but we did, add some players to the bullpen anyways, and hopefully it's a better bullpen and starting rotation this year than we had last year. But yeah, that's the injuries, and now let's get into the roster so we can meet the 2036 Bay Bears, and then we will move on to playing the season. All right, we will start with the pitchers on the team with the rotation first. So our ace is Mr. Matt Simbrat. As you can see, has really developed and has become a pretty solid young pitcher. That splitter never really did anything, but he still has four other pitches. Had a 4.33 ERA last year, or 4.21 ERA last year. I was reading his game started, but a 4.21 ERA last year, which is up from the year before his rookie season. But it was still 15-8. Says he got a little bit unlucky if you look at his SIERA. His SIERA was actually lower last year than it was the year before, and his WAR was higher. So don't know what happened, but for whatever reason, had a higher ERA. But clearly he has developed and is ready to be that ace, and we expect big things out of him this year, hopefully. Next is Arturo Avalos, another really good young pitcher. 5-3 last year with a 4.15 ERA and 22 starts. He came up kind of later in the season. I still got 22 starts in, but definitely was a later call up. But another good young profile and a ground baller with 5 pitches that are all major league average or above, and he's got good movement. Doesn't allow many home runs, and most importantly, he's got that control. So we do like that. Hopefully a lot less walks this year than last year, and he's also durable. So the first two starters are definitely good. A good 1-2 punch. Next is Daniel Raimondi. Just dominated last year, to be quite frank. 15-5, 2.88 ERA in 62 games. He did start 16 of those games. So if you guys might remember, he was in the bullpen. I had him as a stopper, and he was just dominant. But then we had some issues with our starting pitching, and they were just doing terrible. So we moved him over because he has a starting pitcher profile, and continued to dominate. So, he had 16 starts, and 10 of those starts were quality starts. So absolutely love him. You could argue that he's the ace. You could. But he's my third pitcher, so I don't know. I guess you could put either one of them in order of 1, 2, 3. Best stamina, that's for sure. And he has a pretty devastating fastball splitter combo with a good changeup. So really excited about him. He's also only 22 years old. He'll be 23 at the end of April, or beginning of May. So he is extremely young, and is arbitration eligible, so he's going to be pretty expensive really quickly. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of money or any money really for extensions right now because of the bigger contracts that we signed to lock up some core guys, which I do not regret at all. But our budget's just not big enough. We're getting there, but our budget's just not big enough to lock up more than what we have right now long term. So we're having to just play this arbitration game and hope that we can continue to feed the major league team with our farm system with this young talent like this. But that is our number 3 starter. Our 4th starter is going to be making his major league debut, and he's quite frankly going to skip AAA. And I didn't really want to do this, but I was kind of left with no choice with the injuries and not being able to sign the free agent pitcher that we went for this past offseason and didn't get. that was really kind of like the nail in the coffin and having to bring this young guy up. Again, 23 years old, has a good profile potential. I would like it if his movement and stuff was a little bit, or movement and home run allowed was a little bit better, but I'm not going to be picky. His stuff could be really good. Fastball, slider, curveball. He could have 4+ pitches, and hopefully those develop fully. And he's got good intangibles. So good looking young prospect, and we're gonna throw him in the 4 spot. 5th is Dong Hyun Im. Again, have had him for 2 seasons. His first season was a 5.15 ERA. Last year he had a 4.31, so he definitely improved last year. But it's that home runs. He allows 2 home runs per 9, so that's not ideal. And then he doesn't walk too many, but the home runs, that's a lot of home runs per 9. So he gives up a lot of those, and it kind of hurts him, I think. But hopefully, he can do at least that, if not a little bit better this year. And I think we're going to be in a pretty good spot considering our 1 through 3. And then the 4th guy is kind of the anomaly with him being a rookie. But I think it's a pretty solid rotation, and I think we could have pretty good results from our starting pitching this year. All right, moving on to the bullpen. Benny Gage, we picked him up in a trade with Cleveland this year, and we are going to move him into the closer role. Again, he has great stamina and things like that, so you could argue he's a starter, but with the splitter not developing, he's pretty much a 2-pitch pitcher, so I would never start him. Cleveland started him, and I just think that's the wrong move whenever you only have 2 pitches. So I'm going to use him as a closer and see if we can't replicate what we had with Middleton minus the high ERA last year. So hopefully we can get 35 to 40 saves out of him this year. All right, next is, if I get back to him, Mr. Eric Emmanuel. I've had him for 3. This will be his 4th season. Again, averages results. Don't like that he's a fly ball pitcher, but it's crazy because he only gives up 1 home run per 9 on average, but his walk rate is just astronomical. So I got to figure out how we get that down. You would think his walks wouldn't be that bad since his control is a 50, but his walk rate last year was it was 5.6 per 9, which is just wild. Hopefully that does not repeat itself, but he still had a 4.0 ERA with 12 holds last year, and he's a lefty, so we kind of need a lefty guy in the setup spot. All right, Mr. Steve Reeves, probably our least good-looking player on our team, and I mean that by his ratings. He's got a lot of yellow out here and just nothing that's impressive. However, he's produced nothing but impressive results. So who am I to judge this guy? He has been with the Major League team for 3 seasons. This will be his 4th. He's had a 2.59 ERA, a 3.51 ERA, and last year was a 2.45 ERA. He's had saves in every season. He's had multiple holds in every season. The dude has produced results with this profile. So I'm going to keep riding it until it doesn't happen anymore, and then we'll move on. But he's an extreme ground ball guy, and he gets it done. So hopefully that continues. Next is Mr. Eric Guerra, and he's one of the players that we had to call up and supplement one of these injuries. I would have liked it if he was more developed as far as his control and his changeup, but at 24 years old, that may never develop. So hopefully he can come up here and not throw a ton of walks, but at the same time, I kind of expect him to. It says he wants to be a starter, but I just don't know if I want him as a starter. I mean, I might. We'll see. If he would be a starter, it'd probably be in the 5th spot. I would consider it because he has 3 pitches that are major league average or above. I just need to see how his walk rate does and all that. So, all right, next is Ethan Wheeler. I've had him for multiple years now. Nothing new. Last year was his best year with us at a 3.81 ERA in 54 and a third innings. So hopefully we get more of the same. His walk rate is also high. So hopefully we can get that back down. But last year it was the lowest it's ever been at a 4.1. So not too optimistic over that. He also has a profile to where he could be a starter, but he seems to do better in a reliever role, but again, could spot start for us as well. Next is Jim Barry. Very small sample size. Well, technically, I guess not. In 2034, he played in 37 games, had a 5.1, and then last year he had a 5.3 in 10 games. So not the best of results, but again, one of those players that we had to call up because of the injuries, and we're just hoping, he can provide some quality innings this year. Next is Jimmy Boswell, another guy that has kind of gone back and forth in the major leagues. Didn't have him in the big leagues last year. But we're going to have him this year and see what he can do. He's not really performed well in a very small sample size in the big leagues, so hopefully he just had some jitters or something. But we needed another lefty, so we're going to give him a shot and hope that he doesn't allow a ton of home runs. But only time will tell. All right, last but not least on the pitchers is William Schmidt. I've had him for 4 seasons. Now this is the 5th. He's been extremely consistent in the fact that he's going to give us about a 4 ERA. And he's going to eat up innings, but would love his ERA to come down some. But like I said, he does eat up innings and has good intangibles. So we are going to continue to use him. I would like maybe a career year out of him this year, but I would expect somewhere in the 4s for his ERA, considering his last 4 years have been in the 4s. But at least we know we're going to get out of him. I guess we got that going for us. But yeah, that is the pitchers on the 2036 Bay Bears. So let's go ahead and move over to the lineups. All right, on the offensive side, a few new names that we're going to come across here. But no changes to the major players and no changes to catcher position. Backup catcher is Akira Hosoda, mainly because of his catching ability, not his hitting ability. Although he did hit 226, which is kind of better than I thought he would do last year. But just a solid backup catcher to spot start for Vicente. But definitely approaching probably his last year with us. We probably need to find someone else at this point, and honestly might find someone else while the season is ongoing. He is 34 years old. He makes $1.8 million and is due to make almost $3 million next year. So definitely not worth the money. But it is hard to find a solid defensive catcher for $1.8 million. So I guess in a way he's worth the money. His bat is not good, but his defense is solid. And every time I find a solid catcher, he's like $5-6 million. It seems like, even doesn't matter what his bat is. So we're kind of stuck with him. We have an option in AAA, but just doesn't play as good a defense. So I favor the defense on the catcher side a lot more than their bat. But likely his last year with us, if not a partial year with us. Next is the franchise catcher, Vicente Yasso. Again, 4-time Gold Glover, 4-time All-Star, and Silver Slugger. Needs no introduction. Well on his way to a path to Cooperstown. 28 years old and is approaching his 5th full season in the major leagues, and he's already 4 Gold Gloves and 4 All-Stars. And last year's Silver Slugger. Making $10 million, but again, for the best best catcher in the game, still of a contract, $10 million this year, $11 million next year, and then for the next 4 years after that, $16 million until he is 33 years old. So if you go through and look at the catchers that have this type of profile and can hit like this guy's hit, you ain't going to get them for $10 million. You ain't going to get them for $20 million. So absolute steal, and couldn't be happier with how this one is going with Mr. Vicente. Next is another one that we love, Danny Fouts, our franchise first baseman. Just dominant, also entering his 5th season. He's led the league in hits each of the past 2 years. 2 of the past 3 years, he led the league in doubles. And last year, he led the league in steals and has hit over 300 in each of the last 2 seasons. And then last year, he had a 4.8 WAR, which was his highest WAR to date in a single season. Again, making $14 million, but he will make that for the next 4 seasons, and then he will get 1 year at $18 million, and then after that, it's team options for 16. So again, another steal of a contract, I feel like, and couldn't be happier with what he is doing on the field. Next is Javorsky Lane Jr., another guy that's been extremely beneficial to this team with his versatility and his speed, and he can hit a little bit. Last year being his best year by far, with 11 home runs and 67 RBIs, hitting .290, and did have 26 stolen bases. So a huge versatile player for this team. Have him slotted at second base, but let's be honest, he can play anywhere. Next is Mr. Danny Skelding. So he is a new addition to the team, making his major league debut. Bumped him from AA to the majors for primarily one reason, and that's because we lost our captain because I traded him away, and I needed another captain on the team. And so Danny has a captain personality, so primary reason why he's there. He also provides that elusive power that we've needed. So he will back up at second base and first base, and will provide valuable innings for us to allow the Danny Fouts and the Javorsky Lanes to take rest days. But when he comes in, we won't slack a ton on offense. We might slack a little bit on defense, but offensively we'll be the same, and he's got that captain personality, so that's why he's here. Next is Steve Geiger. We didn't have him on the team last year as far as the major league team. He stayed in the minors the whole year, but crushed it down there. So we feel like we need to give him a chance. We've never really given him a full season. So we're going to try to do that. Mainly going to back up at first base, but kept him for that. And then he has a pretty decent bat profile and also has good leadership and intelligence. So hopefully can provide us with some acceptable defense and offense as a platoon, or not really a platoon, but a backup player. All right, next is Brendan Rohr, our third baseman. Had a solid season last year, a 2.0 WAR, 277 average, 6 home runs, 58 RBIs. Nothing that steps off the page and is crazy, but decent defense and a decent bat. Definitely love that, and hopefully we get more of the same from him this year. Next is Isaac Cardenas. Not a lot to say. Has a mediocre bat, but again, just like Javorsky Lane, has every position available for him to play, and he plays them all at major league level, average or elite level. So definitely a huge player for this team, and excited to continue to have him on the team. All right, next is Mr. Nate Aguilar. So we played him last year in the 2-hole, and he didn't do bad, I'll be honest. He had 298, and as expected, but 0 home runs, 46 RBIs, did steal 32 bases, had a WRC plus of a 96 and a 1.6 WAR. So again, did not have a bad season. However, I am not going to start him this year, and I will show you why in a minute. Yes, he stole 32 bases. Yes, he hit 300. But we talked about that we were lacking power, and we were almost dead last in that in the American League. And as you can see, he is the weakest link on the team in power. I have guys that can hit 290. I have guys that can steal 20 to 30 bases that are still starting. I have guys that can play average to above average defense. I have guys that can do all those things. They also all hit home runs. Nate does not. So I feel like his role is a good bat off the bench, a good pinch runner when we need it, and a good utility outfielder that can play all 3 positions and give the starters a breather. I don't like the fact that he's a backup and he's going to be making $2.5 million, but it is what it is. I think he's a very acceptable bat off the bench and could be huge for us. And he's a left-handed bat, so that was a tough decision to move him to the bench, so to speak. But I think when you see the player that I added, you'll know why. Next is Mike Flores. We've had him on the team before. Thought that power was going to develop a little bit more. I guess it still kind of is. But he had 25 home runs last year in his second full season after his Rookie of the Year campaign. And he hit 265 with a 4.8 WAR and a 127 WRC plus, making $6 million this year and $11 million next year. And he plays a very above average corner outfield. So we do like Mr. Flores. I don't know if I like him at $11 million, but we'll address that when that time comes. But he is a corner outfielder for us this season. Next is Mr. Tim Vaux. I believe we got him slotted in at DH, mainly because he is the weaker of all of the outfielders that I have playing in the outfield defensively. And he's a lefty, so I feel like DHing him against righties is a no-brainer, and maybe we could spot someone else against lefties, but his profile is very similar against both sides. So I think we can put him at DH because of his defense, and then the next player that we'll talk about is the player that will slot in the corner instead of him. That player is Luis Castillo. So this is the player that I had in the minors, and he was just he was rapidly developing. We signed him as an international free agent back in February of 2029. He's our number 16 prospect. I believe he's our top prospect in the organization as far as overall rankings. Only 23 years old, and he's going to be making his major league debut, so it's uncertain of what he is going to do, but as you can see, his profile is very, very good defensively and offensively. He's going to walk a ton. He's going to hit a ton of home runs. He's not going to strike out. He's probably going to hit 270 to 290 with 30 bombs and more walks than strikeouts. So he's going to be extremely valuable. And I think of a guy like that, I have to put that bat in the lineup every day. And with that, I'm not sacrificing anything in the corner outfield by taking Nate Aguilar out. All I'm doing is basically taking his defense and putting 35 home runs on it a year, which is 35 more than what he is going to hit. So I think it's a no-brainer, and we're going to give the young 23-year-old a shot. All right, last but certainly not least is the franchise player, Mr. Mason Davis. He is getting older. He's approaching 30 years old. He will hit 30 in just a few days. So it is unfortunate. Luckily, his ratings have stayed virtually the same. Come down a little bit, but I do have to get an updated scatter report, and that is going to be here in a couple days. So hopefully nothing's changed. The only thing that's really changed noticeably on his profile is his defense, because I don't play him in left field or right field. And I definitely don't play him at third base, but left field and right field at all. He just plays center field because his center field fielding ability is ridiculous. Has four All-Stars, 4 Gold Gloves, and also a Rookie of the Year award. So just went over the 200 career home run mark, so he is on his way to 300. And hopefully this year he can get back to that 30 home run threshold, stay healthy and get back there. But 2 straight 2020 seasons, almost 3 straight 2020 seasons. But the 2033 season was only 119 games for him, so got kind of shafted on that one. But nonetheless, our first ever pick in the draft for this organization, and he is making the most money at $23 million, but he was the first one that we locked up long term, and we have him until 2039 in 3 more years. So hopefully we can keep him here for the length of his career and see how it turns out. But that is the 2036 Mobile Bay Bears. It is pretty much time to get the season started. There were a couple of waiver claims I did submit, and I will let you guys know if they went through. They were for minor leaguers, so shouldn't be an issue for us, or hugely impactful, but I thought they added good depth, and so I put those claims in. If they go through, I'll let you guys know, and just show you who I added. But they're not like game changers, but they're just added depth in the minor leagues at positions that I think we need depth at. But yeah, I guess let's just go ahead and see how opening day does. And as customary here on the channel, we will look at the box score for the first game of the season. We did get the win 5-4 as we were on the road against Tampa Bay. I guess I should have probably went over the schedule to start the season here in the first couple weeks, but we'll do that here in a second. I did forget to do that, but nonetheless, we did play Tampa Bay, and it looks like we got off to a 2-1 lead, and then the Tampa Bay Rays came back to take the lead in the 4th inning, and then added another one in the 5th, and they went up, looks like 4-2 on us, and then in the 7th inning we tied it 4-4, and then took the lead in the 8th with one more run to make the final score 5-4. We did get 9 hits, did have 1 error. 9 hits, 2 of them went to Mr. Mason Davis, who had 2 RBIs and a home run as well to start the season. Vicente Giasso had a hit. Danny Fouts had a hit. Majority of the team had a hit. Only 2 starters did not have a hit, and that is Tim Vaux and Javorsky Lane Jr. A pretty solid day with the pitching as well. It looks like Simbrat went 7 innings, did give up 4 runs, but only 2 of those were earned, so he gets a quality start. Only had 4 Ks, but again, only 5 hits. And then Eric Emmanuel went 1 inning in relief, got the hold, gave up 0 runs, did strike out 2 batters, and most importantly, didn't walk anyone. And Mr. Gage got his opportunity to make his first save and did so with 17 pitches, did have 1 strikeout and 1 walk. But it was good enough to get the job done and close it out. So overall, a good start to the season, good starting pitching, solid relief pitching, and some decent offense to get the season started. And now it is time to really get this thing rolling and see if we can't get through April here in this episode. We'll take a look at the schedule real quick. As it usually is, the first the first 4 games of the year are two-game series, and this year it is no different. 2 games at Tampa Bay, then 2 games at home against Minnesota, and then we go on the road against Toronto for 3, and then come back home against Baltimore to round out the first half of the month. And then once we get there, we'll reconvene and see what the rest of the month looks like. But yeah, excited to have baseball back in here in 2036, and let's see if we can have the season that we've been wanting. And as I mentioned, we did have a couple of waiver claims. I'll show you them to you real quick. I think we had a third one, or 3 of them. I don't see the third one here, so we may not have gotten him, but we did get 2 back today. It said they were executed, so this one is purely just minor league depth. Alejandro Espinoza. When we claimed him off waivers, we only had average scouting, and he was a lefty, and he's 22 years old, so I figured, okay, maybe he's just not done developing. Maybe my average scouting will be a little bit off, and he will be projected to be a little bit better. He's not projected to be terrible. He's a 2-pitch pitcher out of the bullpen. Did pitch really well last year, the 2.94 ERA and low A ball. But figured if a lefty, 22 years old, still has some developing to do, a ground baller type pitcher, what's it going to hurt? I'll claim him off waivers, put him in the minor leagues, and see what happens. I see no risk in that. So I went ahead, added him. And then David Corral also was on a minor league contract, but honestly could play in the major leagues right now if we need him to. Plays first base, third base, and shortstop. I'm sure he could play second base as well. But a solid bat and a solid defender with good intangibles on a minor league contract. Again, much needed depth. So we'll stash him in AAA and then see if we ever need him. But yeah, those are the 2. If the third one goes through, I'll let you guys know. If not, then that's the only 2 we got. All right, we have started the season 3-0, so that is excellent news. Also, with us being 3-0, our third waiver claim did go through, and that is Mr. Alvin Priest. Obviously, nothing crazy here. He's a lefty that is 25 years old, has good stamina, holds on runners well, an average-ish profile, just a depth guy. We'll throw him in AAA and hope that we don't need him, but nonetheless, he is there. So again, no risk there and no money because he's on a minor league contract. All right, we are halfway through the first month, and after starting 3-0, we then got swept by Toronto. Did bounce back though and took 2 of 3 from Baltimore. Almost swept them. So we are 5-5, rolling into the 18th of April, where we go on the road against Cincinnati, Miami, and St. Louis before finally coming back home to play Milwaukee. So a pretty important road trip here early on in the season to to not get behind and start the year out like we did last year. We would like to start it out with a above 500 month and then continue to build upon that. So that is what's going on. Had a few minor injuries. Bobby Mercurio has actually been injured twice now, so not ideal. Both of them have been day-to-day injuries with 1 to 2 day recovery times. But he has pitched a total of 2.1 innings this year, and he has started 2 games, so has not gone deep into any game. He's barely gotten out of the first inning and is really taxing our bullpen with those 2 injuries. So hopefully he can come back and stay healthy, although he is a fragile injury proneness, so not looking good there. Daniel Raimondi was also hurt. He had an oblique strain and was out for a couple of days, but obviously as a starting pitcher, you can be out for a few days and not miss any starts. But did come back in the next start, pitched 5.2 innings, 3 earned runs, so almost got the quality start. But hopefully the injuries stay away from Mr. Raimondi as well, given that he dominated for us last year. But yep, that's where we're at, and let's see if we can finish out this month strong. All right, we are almost done with April, and it's not going well in a couple ways. One, we're not winning, so we're now 8-11. We got swept by St. Louis pretty badly. We did take 2 of 3 from Miami, but lost 2 of 3 from Cincinnati as well. So 8-11 to start April, and we just lost a pretty important part of the team for the near future. Mr. Vicente Jasso is going to be out. He strained his hammy running the bases, so he will be out for 4 to 5 weeks. So not ideal there. We'll miss him for probably just over a month. Luckily, I am able to replace his defense for the most part. But you can't replace him completely, and it's unfortunate. But we're going to call up Jared Hunter, 30-year-old, obviously doesn't have a bat, has a little bit of pop, so was going to hit like 200 and might hit us some home runs. But as you can see, he's going to give us elite catching defense, and doesn't have any negative personality traits. So I think it just makes sense to slide him into the starting role and continue to let Mr. Hosoda be our backup. And nothing against him, but again, his catching ability is not as elite as the other guys. His hitting is a little bit better, but not enough to where I'm going to play him. So I think it just makes sense that Jared Hunter is the next guy up, and I could definitely see us using Mr. Hunter going forward and then trying to get rid of Mr. Hosoda. Unfortunate news for sure. Haven't lost Mr. Jasso since he has come to the major leagues. He has been a steady guy in the lineup every day almost, except for the every 4th game that I give the catchers off. Unfortunate that he hurt himself running the bases, but at least it's not for the season, and at least we'll get him back early on enough to where he can still have a good year and provide a big impact for this team. But we're 8-11, so we need to turn some things on here and make the last 3 games of this month wins so we can finish the month 500. But at least get 2 of 3 right here, win the series, and then we can kick off May. All right, we did win the series. We didn't get the sweep, unfortunately, but we did win 2 of 3. So, like I said, I'll take that. I'll take series wins any day of the week. If we could have, stole a game from St. Louis or, not got swept by Toronto, we'd be in a much better situation. But 10-12 the first month, definitely not terrible, but not where we want to be as far as, above 500. Our Pythagorean record, our expectation is 12-10, so we're maybe getting a little bit unlucky. We are 0-2 in extra inning games and 5-9 on the road. Again, the road woes are really kicking us in the nuts here. We had that issue 2 years ago, somewhat last year. It was a little bit better, but really just couldn't get wins on the road for whatever reason. And we're also struggling mightily in one-run games right now. We're 3-7, so definitely need to tighten up. Maybe the pitching or the clutch pitching, or the clutch hitting. So hopefully those stats change. As far as hitting wise, we are in the top 5 in almost every category. We are 13th in home runs, which is better than we were. I think we finished last year 15th in the league, so we are a little bit better. We're not walking much, so that seems to be a little bit of an issue this year. But the home runs ranking is up a little bit. Hopefully that continues to climb throughout the year and we can get in that top 10. And then ERA wise, starter ERA is 7th, which is much improved. And then bullpen ERA is 12th. So overall we're 10th. Not where I want to be, but it is a little bit of a progress as far as the starter ERA at this point in the season. I do believe the bullpen is a little bit of a dip, though, which I kind of expected considering we lost 2 key pitchers in the bullpen. Let's see where we're at on walks. We're 8th in the league, so that is definitely an improvement. And home runs allowed, we are 14th in the league, which is not where we want to be. I believe last year we were 16th, so I guess it's an improvement at this point. But hopefully that number continues to trend in the direction we want it to. But I would say overall, out of all of the areas we needed to address in the off season, the short sample size of 1 month does appear to say that we have addressed them somewhat. I believe probably the home runs allowed to this point is the most disappointing and maybe the least addressed this offseason compared to what we thought we addressed it as. So hopefully that trends in a different direction and we can string some wins together here. But yeah, it is May 1st. What I will do is I will end this episode. I know it got kind of long with the introductions and everything, but I like to do that the first episode and then try to get through the first month and get some baseball underway, so to speak. And then in the next episode, we'll come back and kick off May and get into the full swing of things here and really try to make a push up to the All-Star break, and hopefully we can be in a good position come that break to really make a strong push down the stretch to get back into the playoffs. But I will end the episode there, and we will find out in the next episode how we look probably up into the draft. And thank you so much for watching, and I hope you guys have a fantastic day and weekend. Have a good one.